Hello everyone, this is Rita and welcome to the Genesis Home Podcast, where we talk with professionals in real estate, finance, business, and beyond. Today we are talking with Fanny Montalvo of Keller Williams, New York. We are covering what goes on behind the scenes of a real estate business, but also what goes into nurturing a real estate business, from compliance to education and so much more. So let's get started. Hi everyone, all our episodes of the Genesis Home Podcast is recorded using the Anchor app. If you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. 1, it's free. 2, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Have a great day, everyone. This is Rita of the Genesis Home Podcast, and I am here with the amazing Fanny Montalvo.
So, Rita, it's actually Montalvo.
Montalvo, sorry. I'm also a little nervous because you're kind of like a big role model in my real estate career.
Okay.
So, it's really weird to say this, but you're actually a woman of many hats. It's like you're a managing broker, you're an instructor. So, why don't we just go through who is Fanny? What is Fanny? What's the story with Fanny a little bit?
Okay, so I am a broker of record. I'm also a chief compliance officer for Keller Williams, New York City, out of 99 Park Avenue, one of my favorite addresses because I'm looking at Grand Central. And I've been in this real estate business of ours for 16 years. And I never really thought that I was going to be in this business for 16 days even. It was a transitioning business, just like it is for many of us. It's a second, maybe third or fourth career for some. And in my case, I was an executive search recruiter for 22 years, owning my own firm. And I lost 6 clients that I had known from when I was in my early 20s. In 9/11, on 9/11, and it really left me no other choice spiritually and professionally to just go into another industry. I came into real estate because it's very similar to recruiting because it's all relationship based. So, these 16 years have covered being a licensed real estate person in the beginning, going on to being an associate broker, managing, being a sales manager, a sales director, vice president of sales, managing people, and really propelling and watching people's careers grow, dealing with their problems. I realized very early on as a salesperson that no one was really paying attention to the back end of life in real estate. And the back end of life, to me, really is the fiber, where it begins and what can stop you from getting paid. And when I really started thinking about that, I thought to myself, I've got to learn this side of the business that nobody's focusing on because I've got to make sure that I know it because I'd love to be the go-to person for it. So in a sense, I've carved out my own niche by knowing the things that you should know and many agents don't.
That is actually, pretty true. Now, the interesting part is we've had real estate agents on here before. Some of them are coaches, some of them are licensed salespeople like myself. But we never really get to talk about the people like behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And you're really kind of like the heartbeat of, in my opinion, of what makes the real estate engine work. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in the beginning that you are also dealing with compliance. Mm-hmm. So what does compliance mean in the real estate Land.
So that is probably the best question anybody could ask, right? Because people think when they watch a real estate show that it's easy. People think that everything happens within an hour and maybe a commercial. And really, we know it doesn't, right?
Correct.
So when you ask somebody, or when I say to somebody, I'm going to be overseeing you on a compliance level, they look at me as if I'm crazy, right? Because the average person that comes into this industry believes they do so as an independent contractor. While that's correct on how you get paid, while it's correct on how you file your taxes, and it's also correct in that you're not an employee and we could never treat you as one, compliance applies to everyone. Compliance is at the heart of every business transaction. Real estate is a business transaction. Compliance covers the laws that pertain and guidelines that pertain to what happens when you become the real estate professional involved in a real estate transaction. So compliance covers fair housing laws, which, yes, I am also a licensed instructor and teach continuing education. Mandated of us all in this industry as licensees, we must all have fair housing, agency, and now ethics as part of our continuing education classes that we take. Fair housing is really something that the ordinary person never really thinks about, right? I like to say that the reason why I teach fair housing, I love teaching fair housing, and I've been told that the classes are pretty good and quite different from the average fair housing class that they've taken that agents have taken in the past, is because I'm a minority. I'm a woman. I've been discriminated against. I'm a Hispanic woman. I've lived discrimination. I have watched it, heard it, been around it. And I like to think in my mind that you can't teach something so great unless you really know it so well. So fair housing falls under compliance. Agency law falls under compliance. Agreements fall under compliance, which is why those three topics I cover in a new agent's orientation or an existing agent's review. Because fair housing, we know, has new laws attached to it. New laws meaning new notices that must be given to all buyers, sellers, renters, and landlords. Agency, because I would say that by being in this business for 16 years, overseeing agents and teaching now, not only agents that are new, but agents that have been in the business for a very long time still do not know how to properly complete an agency disclosure agreement or a disclosure. Fair housing, I had, for instance, someone say to me on one of the classes, oh, we don't have to give fair housing disclosure in commercial. Well, that's not true, right? So a lot of times I attribute these questions that people have or things they don't know or realize that they have to be compliant. I attribute it to not reading, not paying attention, right? So much so that I've made read the word in caps as one of the passwords to get into my Zoom calls. So I think the average agent comes into this industry thinking that they're going to make $1 million. When we both know that not every agent makes it in this industry. It is a relationship-based industry, meaning that, it's formed by relationships and trust. But with all of the relationships and trust, those themselves fall under fiduciary, right? And fiduciary, we know we must give to clients. Sometimes you'll talk to an agent, they think they have everybody as a client, when in fact, they've never established the fact that that person could be a customer. So compliance covers ethics, how you're going to do your business so that you're not foregoing a commission because someone has sued you for it. It covers fair housing, again, most importantly, because you need to do things properly in accordance to what the protected classes are, what can and cannot be done, what new laws have come out for instance, the rental side of the house, right? We know you can't take more than $20 on an application fee. So it's really a combination, compliances of keeping up to date with what's new and making sure that you have every single thing in check. It's not just about being a great real estate agent with great relationships.
You said something that really did trigger like a really interesting thought. You mentioned continuing education. Mm-hmm. The common misconception is that once we get our licenses, we're done. It's been fun. It's really not true at all. In fact, we're still learning all the time.
Right. So the common misconception I'm going to add to that is that you learn everything that you need to know in real estate school. And the truth of it is, if there was everything you needed to know put out to you in real estate school, you would be walking around with more than one book. You'd be walking around with a truck full of books. Everything you learn is in order for you to take the licensing test. Everything that you do learn in real estate, we continue to learn every single day because every transaction is different. Every question is different. Every situation is different. So we continue to learn. The agent that doesn't plug in and doesn't continue that learning throughout the entirety of their career is probably at some point going to face an awful legality.
That is true. But also not just face an awful legality, but they're also going to have a problem when it comes to the advisory portion of their job because things, as you said in the beginning, things change all the time. So if there's questions out there that we have to answer or be prepared to answer, those continuing education classes help us do our jobs effectively with a level of ethics and integrity.
Correct. So that is absolutely correct. I think that the average person, you know, you have different scenarios, right? So I always laugh when I see a new agent asking another new agent questions. Right? Yeah. Like it just like I almost step back and I just watch it. And then there's the agent that asks 1,000 people the same question, hoping that whatever answer they get is the one that they think it is. And then there's the agent who never asks, but does and comes crying thereafter. And then I have those wonderful agents who ask before they do anything to make sure that they're doing it correctly. And then I have the agents that I've seen that don't keep files, papers, right? So we know that the DOS tells us we have to keep our documentation for a period of 3 years. Now, if you throw COVID on top of that, so 3 years makes it so that all courts are backed up, as was the DOS. So now it is suggested from me, really, that you keep your materials and your files 5 years, because you would be very surprised that when you think someone's not going to come looking for you, and they do, what do you have to show for what happened during that transaction? So compliance, this falls under compliance.
interesting thing is you did mention the pandemic, and once again, I had other agents on here and they talked about how it impacts their personal businesses, but we've never really discussed how it changed in the real estate industry. And there's so many like information about, the changes in like the foreclosures and stuff like that. Have you seen from your experience a shift in how we manage or how real estate handles transactions, relationships, and things like that during this time period of questionable or interesting circumstances?
So I have to say that personally, because I'm the person that's responsible for signing all of the agreements, I have to say that I've not suffered from not signing. So, even during the pandemic, I mean, we have one of our agents did 280 transactions of property not seen physically, but only virtually. So, in a sense, what I've seen, at least here, is the agents are adjusting how they're working. They're making it work. From a standpoint of reopening, let's say, right? We reopened in the summer. And from a standpoint of reopening, once again, we are compliant in following CDC and reopening guidelines. So because of that, we've changed the way we do business with the agents. In the education portion of it, it's all Zoom based, right? As far as agents coming in, they are taking turns coming in. So it's at a reduced capacity so that we don't have everybody here congregating all in one place. So our business in its core has not changed. We're still taking listings. We're still really going with the relationships that we have. Part of the pandemic is that no cold calling is allowed, right? Do not call until March 24th. Now it's been extended. So part of compliance is being up to date with knowing that it's been extended, right? Which the agents will know as soon as I get that date. I let everybody know. Part of it is, adhering to exactly what it lets us do. We can still send flyers, so they're doing that. We can still call a for sale by owner only if we have an actual buyer, which they are doing. And really what they're focusing on is the warm or hot calls, which really are made to the people that they have in their database. So for many ways, it has not changed. But on those two, the cold calling and their presence and, let's say, the new COVID forms, those are the one things, of course, that have changed.
Okay. The interesting thing part is you mentioned so much in those first few minutes that I just want to cover everything as much as I can. You mentioned residential and commercial. Those are two topics or two things that people really don't understand, that there's different specialties. How does compliance or, education and things like that fit within understanding those? Like, because you have residential, you have commercial, you have people who are investment based. What's the baseline that kind of brings all of those together?
So the baseline is always going to be compliance in the beginning, throughout, to the end, right? So a commercial specialized agent is no different in their licensure than a residential or even a rental agent. The Department of State issues the license to you as either a licensed real estate salesperson, a licensed real estate associate broker, and myself, a licensed real estate broker, right? Whether I, as an agent, do residential, commercial, rentals, whatever I do with that license, the DOS looks at me the same. Right now, as it's always been, a commercial transaction-based agent does not give their customers or clients an agency disclosure. Agency disclosure only applies to residential, rental, and sales. But now, as of June 20th, 2020, the fair housing disclosure must be utilized and given by every single agent, whether they are doing commercial or residential. On the learning side, again, somebody who's doing commercial is going to be learning about commercial property. On the compliance side, they must learn all the same.
Okay. Now, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit because I wanted to ask this a very important question. You mentioned new agents. And when I first met you, I was a new agent. A lot has changed since then. But when I first met you, I was a new agent. And I had an interview with you. I am familiar with that. Part of compliance is also standards. So as a broker on record, someone with 16 years of experience, is a teacher, an instructor, and in my opinion, a role model. I do feel that way. What are your standards when it comes to, what you look for in an agent or a colleague? Because I know everyone has their perception, but from what I've known about you and from talking to you, you have this way of looking past the agent and what that agent could be. So I always was curious, what are your standards and what's your standard for people in this industry?
Well, again, a reminder, right? So I was an executive search recruiter for 22 years. And what that life did for me was to really develop relationships with people, right? So when I was a recruiter and I was recruiting for, let's say, Cisco Systems and Reuters, these were my clients, Deutsche Bank. So I go by then, of course, the skill set that someone is looking for. But, remember, I wasn't meeting with or recruiting new people. I was recruiting for experienced senior level people. But it comes down to people. So what that business did for me is to be able to hear someone, look at them directly in the eyes, get a feel for who they are as much as I can. My interviews, whether they be in the past or as they've been in taking on an agent, whether they're new or experienced, my interview process is for about an hour, and it may even go on to 2 hours. I believe that what I'm looking at is to make sure that I give that person a complete and transparent vision of what they're coming into. Whether they come in to us or whether they decide that they're going to go with someone else. But I go over the financials with them. Many times I get a question, how much can I make? My sincere answer is $1, right? Because I'm not here to promise you something that you are not going to be able to have. And then I always put it back on the person. I don't know you. I don't know what you're capable of doing. But if we're the firm for you, I'm the person that's going to make sure that I help you in every way you need so that you've got one less thing to worry about. What I look for as an example of what I do not look for is I had an interview with someone a couple of months ago, and he said to me, I'm here because I'm looking for a side hustle. And I said to him, I got to be really honest with you. I didn't know that I spent 16 years hustling. I didn't know that's what was happening. And he said to me, yeah, I don't really want to be around. I just want to make money. that person is not here simply because that's a person that's telling me up front that they're not going to be reading my emails. They're not going to be plugging into what we're trying to have them know and do. And they want to just be in the Wild West without having any broker supervision. My license dictates that I manage an agent vicariously, right? So therefore, if I've got to wonder what you're doing, you're a new agent, you don't want to take classes, you don't want to know what you're doing, we're not going to be doing a side hustle with you. So that's, what, when I'm meeting with somebody, I'm talking to them about who are you? What do you do? Where do you live? Tell me a little bit about yourself, because a big part of this here out of this office is empathy, right? You've got to understand, you've got to get to know these people so that when they have a problem, you know it even before they tell you that they do. And you have to be that person that's going to extend more than just information. So I'm looking for business partners that think that this is a business and they're going to do it that way. They're going to run it that way. That's what I'm looking for. Whether you're new or experienced, that's the conversation we have here.
Well, that also explains why when you and I first talked, one of the first things, you said a lot of things, but one of the things that stuck with me was the fact that you said that this is not a job, this is a career. And I'm not looking for someone who's trying to make this a job. I'm looking for someone who's want to make this a career. And I looked at you and you looked me dead square in the eye and just let me know how this is going to go. And you are you up for that type of life? And I'm going, yeah, let's do it.
So, it's funny you said that, because everybody always goes back to that. You looked me straight in the eye. So I roll that way. When I'm talking to you, I want you looking at me. When you're talking, I'm looking at you. And when I've got to tell you something of importance, I actually don't even blink. So,
no, you don't.
So people laugh at that, but you know what? It's just, I'm upfront, I'm transparent, I put my cards on the table, and the only way that I know of letting you know that I mean it is by looking you straight in the eye, so that you could never say, she never told me that, because you'll remember, because I did. Yes.
You did. But the thing is, what's so fascinating about that is, I think, because I've heard people talk about interviews for different brokerages before, and they all say, well, this seems really nice, and da-da-da-da. I did not get that. I got, this is the situation. This is the reality of the situation. What are we going to do about it?
You know what? I always say, you will remember this, right? I'm not your friend. I'm not meeting with you so that we can schedule, drinks, dinner, and, what are we going to do next weekend, right? This is, you come into this industry, it's about you, it's about your money, it's about your business, right? And I like to let you know, I'm not your best friend. You know what? Being nice to me, I'm nice. But more so than that, I just like to make it very clear of what things are and set the expectation. Because the minute I don't have an expectation that's set, you're going to cross a boundary. And I'm not the person to cross a boundary with. Not personally and not professionally. So everybody that has worked with me, and even people that I'm with today who have been with me for years, around me for years, we're still operating on the premise of, I am here for you. You are the business owner. Tell me what's going on. We're not best friends. This is a business.
Exactly. but what's the interesting part is and this is why I'm like really excited to have you here, because every step of that process, you still feel the partnership. So from the education, I mean, I've taken your classes, and the classes are not just, sounds like Ben Stein. You really are making sure that we understand the material, that we understand how this impacts our businesses and how we talk to our clients. You mentioned and I thought this was really interesting, you mentioned the importance of compliance, but you also mentioned the importance of the experience. And when you are an instructor, your experience shows or plays a part. Why is that part so important to you, that experience is mixed in with your education when you teach?
Because as a Hispanic woman, I was once a Hispanic little girl, right? And, when you're a child, you really have no control over much of anything, right? And I have seen discrimination. I've seen and heard it, as I became a young woman in my early 20s. I worked for brokerage firms, right? I was in the brokerage industry. And I don't need to tell you, there are plenty of movies out there that you can watch, and I can tell you all of those things are true, of things that were said and done and discrimination. And it holds a special part of me because so many times I have heard agents say, I will never work with that amount of money, or work with people that are looking or have a voucher. I always look at it this way. When we all get our real estate license, there's no discrimination. We're all let in, right? We could be young, old, older, white, black, Asian, anything, tall, short, whatever we are. No one says you can't come in. You can't be licensed, right? And we're all told that. There you go. Here's your license. Once a person becomes a licensee, it boggles my mind how an industry that did not discriminate against them, they now have become the gatekeepers for discrimination. That, to me, boggles my mind. That's why, to me, it's very personal.
Now that you put it that way, I get it.
I'm happy.
No, it's just that you made me think back to when, my family got their start in real estate, and how then that was before the Civil Rights Act, and that was before all of, all the provisions that are in place today, and what they had to go through just to get a house.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I always encourage people during these classes, and even here, to learn history. Right? Learn history. Many times somebody in my past has said to me, oh my gosh, you don't look Hispanic. Oh, gee, but your last name. Well, you know what? That's my surname. That is my last name. Do a little bit of research. Do a little bit of history. Read. If you know your history, you'll understand strife from somebody else's shoes and what people had to go through. The fact that, for many years, blacks, if you were going to look at deeds, let's say, out of Long Island, right? Even deeds mandated that the property must be sold to Caucasians. So people really need to understand, to read. You need to understand what the word steering means as it applies to real estate. When I ask, can anybody tell me what it means? Oh, not bringing people to certain places. That's not what it means. It means steering them away or towards a property, right? People don't understand the history of redlining, how certain areas were red lines on a map where only this type of person could live, and only that type of person ended up living because of the redlining. You know, what people's median and economic revenue was, what type of money were they making. You know, that's going to affect where you as a child go to school. So all of these things really have had such an impact on me. You know, not because, you know, I couldn't go to certain schools, not because we had a voucher per se, but because I grew up humble. And when you grow up humble, people really, you see the difference in how people treat you. And when you're a minority, on top of that, you know, the treatment and what you see and hear is very different. So that is why I teach it with a passion.
And that's why I still have all your stuff. Okay. And speaking of something really quick, you and I are in two different brokerages, which still feels weird, but it happened. You and I are in two different brokerages. And I think that's a topic that I really want to discuss really quick. And I want to discuss when it comes to not just the interview process or things like that, but what should an agent new or more experienced look for in brokerages today? Yeah. Because a lot has changed. I mean, it's not the same as it was when I was a kid. Let's not do those. Yeah, let's not do
it for me neither, okay? Okay.
Yeah, let's not do that math. But what's the big part for you when it comes to looking for a brokerage? Because I'm EXP. I'm honest. I'm EXP Realty, and you're Keller Williams, NYC. So I'm mindful that there's a distinction.
So, in short, all firms focus on the same product, right? The product. Product is real estate, okay? But all firms are not alike. So you have them broken into threes. The first being an independent model. The second being a dependent model. And the third being something like we are, which is an interdependent model. So for the average agent, let's say it's a new agent. What are you looking for if you're a new agent? I think you have to go with your gut and go with the feeling you get when you're at the brokerage, when you're talking to leadership, let's say. You know, when you're being explained things, you need to go with that gut if that feels right for you. Not all brokerages are the same when it comes to compensation, not coming to you or coming from you. Not all firms are the same in the sense that some firms don't require you, they don't have a physical presence, right? Or the way that they operate is different as far as a physical. Some agents, no matter how this industry changes, always want a physical presence with the brokerage and with their management. So it really, really goes down to, if you're a new agent, what feels right to you? What is it that you're looking for? You know, when I meet with somebody, they're interviewing me as well as me them. So I would always suggest to new agents, come in with some questions. Do your homework. You know, I always say that if I were in college right now, I'd be Einstein because I would have everything at my disposal. Whereas when I was in college, I was the kid who used to walk around to the library for my footnotes and for everything that I needed, right? I used to actually bring my mom's shopping cart to the library. So, you know, today everything is at your fingertips. find out a little bit about the brokerage, find out a little bit more about the leadership, figure out who it is that you're going to be meeting. Something that I always say, whether you're new or experienced, is if you have an appointment with someone, look like you're coming to an interview. I saw someone once that came in shorts and flip-flops. I didn't know we were going to the beach. So,
Sorry.
somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, I'm sitting here, I got a bun. Do you have a bun?" I said, "You know what? You need to do a little, you need to look at me on all the places that you can see me." I said, "'Cause I don't do a bun. I do a bun when I've got a mop in my hand and I'm doing the kitchen." So, since that doesn't happen when I'm here, when I leave my home every day, I'm going to a premiere. I'm not going to mop my kitchen. So, there are so many things that new agents really need to do in order to prepare for a meeting. Experienced agents are no different. When you're meeting with somebody, is this the kind of place that I can bring my business to? Let's talk about the numbers. Let's talk about, what am I going to be able to see based on this production? So, yeah, that's the only way that I can answer it, really.
And that's, if the honest answer is always the right answer. So, I mean, I find it interesting because I know normally the agents, people, like I said, we've had other agents, but they've all been from the same brokerage. I really wanted someone on here that, one, is behind the scenes and understands how it really works and not,
Right.
$1 million listings, but also understands that not everything is cookie cutter. That there's every brokerage has a different set of operations, and see if that operation fits you.
And it all comes down to money. So if you've got somebody who's brand new in the industry, you cannot expect that the next day you're going to be receiving a commission check, right? So you need to always save your money. Even when you're making a boatload of money, operate in life as if you're not. Pay yourself a little portion, because we've all seen, most especially in 2020, that COVID left almost everyone, restaurants, real estate agents, businesses without. So, if you operate in the mindset that you're not going to live beyond your means, you're going to budget everything that you do. And especially when you're brand new to an industry, because, it's commission based, you have to live accordingly. You cannot be that person that does deals in such a hurry simply because you're desperate for money. It will always backfire.
That is true. And I think what's also important is and you've mentioned it so many times about, it's a business. It's something you nurture. There's always a difference between a hustle and a business.
That's right.
A hustle, you're chasing.
That's right.
A business, you're nurturing. And I think for someone with your experience and your caliber, that part is really there. That the compliance is part of that nurturing process, because you want to make sure that not only are you okay, but your client's okay, and the process that follows is not just smooth, but meets the standards that you are presenting. So once again, thank you so much for this, but like I said, these are things that are not discussed. These are things that you normally don't hear about. You hear about the pretty stuff. Once again, do not want to do that.
Yeah,
but
so
it's a really kind of like Rob
what's funny is that,
feel.
I've actually heard agents say, a buyer or a seller seller must pay at closing. It's never not done where you close without a check. And the answer to that is that's not true, right? Something could close and you will not be getting a check.
Exactly.
And another thing that people really don't pay attention to is the actual listing contract, right? Because if I were to ask an agent, I need you to tell me what's in term number 3, they have no idea. So again, it goes back to read. The more you read, your agency disclosure. I've had agents, a while ago, I had an agent call me, not out of Keller, by the way, but call me to let me know that the seller needed to speak to me so that I can explain agency. I should never have to do that. You have to know your stuff. This is your listing, your client. You need to explain to them what the relationship comes with when you become a seller's agent, a buyer's agent, renter's agent, or a landlord's agent, right? You can't expect that I'm going to do that for you. In her case, I did, but I shook my head. Yes, and we had a conversation after that, and we had a conversation. That's that. Right.
Yeah. The interesting thing is we can do a whole episode or a whole topic on just listings alone, because there's so many assumptions and myths about that I mean, it's mind blowing what they read, and then when reality hits, they go, I didn't know that. Yes, that's the process. So you are absolutely right. But I am actually going to do something that I know I'm going to hear it later. Let's talk about Keller Williams.
Let's talk about what?
Let's talk about Keller Williams. Everyone's heard about EXP.
So
they already know
I have to say,
but
in all honesty, that in my entire 16 years of being in a business, that I really, my heart really belongs to Keller Williams. And my heart belongs to Keller Williams because of the great people that I come in contact with and are in my life because of Keller Williams. So when I first started, I was with a very small boutique firm. They've now been taken over by Sotheby's. I was with Fenwick Keats. And those people, in a sense, I look at that firm as the firm that I grew up at, right? Just the way that I would look at where I, as myself as a kid growing up, where I learned so much. But I look at Keller Williams as the firm that clipped, that just let my wings go and allowed me to really put forth everything that I've learned in this business. I'm really fortunate in that I work with people that, will always ask, how are you doing? They're asking me, when in fact it's my job to make sure that they're doing okay, but it's reciprocal. I have a broker, an operating principal, or the principal broker, who, he'll be standing there and all of a sudden ask, are you hungry? Did you eat? I'm going to go and get a sandwich. Would you like something? It's little things like that really make me feel that I am where my heart lives. So that is really what I can say about Keller Williams, is that I have this spot in my heart, and the agents are absolutely, they know that my love is hard. I love hard. And I think the world of them. So that's the best that I can tell you about how I feel about Keller Williams.
Okay. I just thought, to maintain a balance, and I wanted people to know that for me, it's about the real estate, not about the brokerage. And I think the important thing is I'd rather have good people that know the process and know what the situation is, and know like the instead of the brand awareness stuff. So by introducing different brokerages like Keller Williams and things like that, there's options out there, and for someone, once again, someone with your expertise can introduce it in a unique
So
way.
I again,
So
you know what?
I really wanted to
think
thank
that
you.
really going with your gut, you know, if you're that person that wants to make sure that someone is looking out for them and that things are done in a checklist way, right? Where we're really protecting their commission. At the end of the day, this is what this is about. We're protecting your commission, your reputation. You know, we're protecting you in every single way. So
Right.
this is what Keller Williams NYC does, right? Because I do it. This is what I do.
Right.
You know, if you're that agent that really wants to do deal after deal and not have anybody bother them, you know, and take the chance that you're going to fall into a legality and a litigious mess, there are plenty of firms out there. I mean, I can tell you, I met with someone that we took on a couple of months ago, and she mentioned to me that their meetings were held in the park. In the park, yeah. So after our meeting, you know, she signed up like right there, and there isn't a day that doesn't go by that she doesn't send me something saying, you know, just checking in, just wanted to see how you were doing today, and you know, it's stuff like that. It really is stuff like that. You've got to really understand this business to know where you're going to be protected and comfortable at in putting your license down.
Yes. Thank you so much, Fanny. And I know you have to go soon, so why don't you tell everyone where we can find
I'm
you?
the broker of record at Keller Williams NYC. And if you go on to kwnyc.com, you can see me. I'm part of the leadership team. And if you go on to LinkedIn, you know, I connect a lot. I just posted something the other day and it got almost 2,000 views. Like I didn't know people were so interested, but I guess they are. But I'm on LinkedIn, and it'd be my pleasure to connect with everybody because I'm connected to Rita Parker.
Aww.
So
Thank you so
welcome.
much, Fanny, for coming on today.
Have a
And
great
everyone.
day.